Welcome to the Developing on Windows session. My name is Kayla Cinnamon, and I'm joined by my teammates DeAndre Davis and Craig Lowen from the Windows for Developers team. Our goal in our daily jobs is to make sure developers can be successful on Windows by creating useful tools and improving the developer experience overall. Whether you've been on Windows for years or if you've recently come to this platform, we want to make sure that your experience is as seamless as possible. Our team builds great tools such as Windows Subsystem for Linux, Windows Terminal, Windows Package Manager, and Microsoft PowerToys. We've been working hard to make Windows a great place for developers, and we have a bunch of great stuff to show you today. For those of you with new devices, we'll be showing you a quick and easy way to set up your machine so you can get started right away with your development. We also have some great improvements made to the Windows shell that DeAndre will share more about in a little bit. If you ever wanted to automate pieces of the Windows shell, Craig will be showing a great demo using Power Automate Desktop. And for those of you interested in machine learning, I'll be doing some model training that can be done on just about any device. And lastly, if you have a Linux background, Craig has some great content to show you with workloads that are seamless between Windows and Linux. Of course, everything we show you today will be available either right now or in the very near future. We've also created setup scripts that you can find on GitHub that will help you get started using any of these workflows. You can find our GitHub at aka.ms/Windows for Developers. So without further ado, let's get into the good stuff. So over here, I have a completely new machine. It's on the Windows Insider Program dev channel, and I haven't installed anything on this machine at all. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is open Windows Terminal. So I did mention I haven't installed anything, yet Windows Terminal still comes included inside the Windows OS. So this is our first announcement, is that Windows Terminal is officially default here on Windows, and you can find it in the Insider Program. So here in Terminal, the first thing I'm going to need to use is the Windows Package Manager. So before I left my apartment, I used winget export to export the packages that I have on my work machine. And then here I can use winget import to then use that same file that they're exported to and then have all of my packages install seamlessly. So if I type winget import packages.json, this will start the installation process. So the Windows Package Manager is officially 1.0 as of today. So this is a huge announcement because we originally announced Windows Package Manager at Build in 2020, and here in 2021 we've come full circle and announced Windows Package Manager 1.0. And not only is it 1.0, it will also be shipped inside the Windows OS in the third quarter of this year in the App Installer. So this is huge because Windows now has a package manager that will come by default in the third quarter of this year. So I know this is a build session, and we don't want to sit here and watch all of these packages install. And at this point, normally I would close this laptop, open a new one, and we would have a freshly baked machine. Well, I only have one machine today, so I'm going to actually close down the virtual machine that I'm running right now. So I'll stop all these installation builds and close down the VM and then get onto the main machine itself. So this is the actual desktop on the actual laptop, I promise. And this is exactly what the machine would look like after all of those packages have installed. So the first package that I installed that I always use is Windows Terminal Preview. So I know Windows Terminal does come shipped inside the OS, but I like to use Windows Terminal Preview because it has the latest features already built in. So the first thing I want to do is customize my experience. So I can do that by going to the settings. And this is our new settings UI that has been released in Windows Terminal versions 1.7 and newer. So this makes it really easy to customize your terminal experience and have it tailored just to your liking. So the first setting I want to show you is this default terminal application setting that is new today in Windows Terminal Preview, and it's also available on the Insider Program dev channel. And this lets you pick a default terminal emulator to use as your default terminal when launching any command line application. So if I launched PowerShell or Command Prompt, they would launch in whichever terminal I picked here. So of course, I'm going to hit Windows Terminal Preview and save. And then the next thing that I want to do is, of course, customize it because I always have fun backgrounds in my terminal. So I could use the settings UI here because it's really easy to use. However, I'm going to use a new method today. So I'm actually going to go into my File Explorer and head on over to the Fragments folder that's inside the Windows Terminal app location. So this is for the new feature called JSON fragment extensions here in Windows Terminal. So if I navigate over to Fragments, it's actually /Microsoft/Windows Terminal. So here we go. And if you don't have this folder already, you can create it and you have Windows Terminal installed, and then it will work seamlessly if it doesn't already generate on its own. So here I have fragments as well as build extension. So in this build extension folder, I have a JSON file and the background image that I'd like to use. So this JSON file is considered a JSON fragment extension, and it layers on top of your JSON settings inside Windows Terminal. So if you want to share your settings between devices or between friends, or if you own a shell and you want to distribute your own theme, you can create an extension in JSON, and it'll apply directly to your Windows Terminal. So here I have an object that updates my Windows PowerShell profile with the background image. And I also am going to create a new profile called build profile, just to demonstrate that you can create a new profile this way as well. And you might notice the font that I'm using looks like Cascadia code, but it's a little more italic. And that's because we've released the italic variant of Cascadia code today at build. And this has some nice cursive letter forms, which make it really easy to identify different variables and things in my code. So this comes by default in Cascadia code, and you can get it on GitHub. It also comes shipped inside Windows Terminal, and you can get it there as well. So I'm just going to jump back into File Explorer, and I'm going to take this extension and apply it into the fragments folder, and this will apply it to Terminal, but I have to actually launch a new instance of Terminal for it to take effect. So instead of launching a new Terminal window, I'm going to use our latest feature called Quake Mode, which has been heavily requested, and I can access Windows Terminal from anywhere in Windows and type the Windows key and the backtick key, and this will open the Windows Terminal window at the top of the screen without the tab bar. And you can see that it's applied that background image to my Windows PowerShell profile, and if I open the drop-down menu, you can see that I've generated this build profile that came from that extension. So this is how you can quickly get set up with Windows Package Manager to get your machine started with all the packages that you need. And if you want to customize Windows Terminal easily from one device to another, you can create a JSON fragment extension, apply it to your new device, and you should be good to go. So with that, I want to pass it over to DeAndre, who's going to talk about some new features here in the Windows shell. So DeAndre, over to you.
All right, cool. Thanks, Kayla. And hey, everyone. Virtual desktops are a collection of digital displays to help us to visually and cognitively separate between the different things that we're working on. If you're like me, you'll find yourself constantly juggling around a bunch of different things, whether it's stuff related to work, for school, a side project or hobby, or just something you're looking to experiment and play around with. There are a bunch of different things you want to do in our machines, but we're often constrained by a limited amount of space we have on our displays. So to get around this, what we'll often do is go out and purchase things like multiple monitors or invest in ultra-wide displays to help give more space for the things we want to work on. However, with virtual desktops, we can simply assign a desktop for each of the different things we want to work on, and then quickly switch between them using keyboard shortcuts. And so to demonstrate, let's go ahead and take a look at my device. On my machine, I've been working on a couple of different projects over the past few weeks. From File Explorer, we see that I've cloned the open source GitHub repos for Microsoft PowerToys, Service Duo Compose project, Windows Terminal, and Winget CLI. Now, earlier today, I was just helping out Kayla with some of the customization functionality for Windows Terminal. But now, I want to switch gears and start working on some things related to Service Duo. Now, I don't really want to close out of Visual Studio because I know I want to come back to it later on to finish up some things. But I also don't want to start loading up Windows-related Service Duo and overcluttering this screen space. So what I can do is simply leave everything as is on this display and generate additional virtual desktops for all the work I want to do with Service Duo. And so prior to this talk, I've already gone ahead and created these two virtual desktops for Service Duo, which I can now jump between using the Control, Win, and left-right arrow keys. Doing so now will take us to the first of these virtual desktops, where I have loaded Android Studio, and I'm running a companion pane project for the Service Duo. And on the other virtual desktop, I'm using as a general testing space, where I have loaded an Android emulator of the Service Duo, as well as some general diagnostic information here on the side. And so as I mentioned, you can switch between these various desktops by using the keyboard shortcuts, or you can use the on-screen UI to open up the task view so you can see all the various virtual desktops that you have available to you. And so a lot of you may already be familiar with this functionality, but what's new is that we've increased the level of customization and flexibility for developers and general users to be able to customize the experience on each desktop to their liking. So with that being said, we've now enabled users to now set custom backgrounds for each of the different desktops that they're working on to help make them more distinct. In addition, we've expanded the realm of functionality for labeling your virtual desktops to now include special characters and emojis. So on my machine, if I'm here to customize an emulator title, I can open up the emoji keyboard by pressing the Win and period key to open up that, and select the phone emoji to help make that stand out and be more distinct. In addition, we can also reposition the order of our virtual desktops to help prioritize the things that we care about most of the time. And so next example, since we're finished with Terminal, we'll bring it to the back so the Surface Duo can be our main focus. Lastly, we see here that from the Terminal desktop, I have a to-do list of different things I've been trying to keep tabs on. And so I want to make sure it's handy on my Surface Duo project. And so what I'll do is I'll take that window from the task view and drag it over to the Surface Duo project. And then going into the Surface Duo project, we see that I now have it here in my workspace. Now, with it being shaped like this, it's kind of taking up a little bit too much screen space. And so what I want to do is set it up so it ideally fits in with the rest of the work that I'm doing. And so to help make this more efficient, I have Microsoft PowerToys set up so that I can now load customized zone layouts for each of the different workflows that I'm trying to interact with. In this case, we see that I currently have a full screen mode set up for Microsoft PowerToys. But now I can utilize my pre-built main sub-windowing tile for PowerToys and then quickly move the windows into their appropriate spaces by dragging them and holding the Shift key and releasing in the desired zones. And so with these additions and improvements to Windows, we're hoping to really help developers make the development experience more unique and ideal for each of the different workflows. Now, let's transition to talk about some of the performance updates we've made for developers. We actively listen to your community feedback and take note of all the performance gaps that you've experienced across all your various workflows. For example, if you're an Android developer, you might be pained by how long it takes to run common tasks like compiling your project. Well, we've heard your feedback, and we've partnered with Google to dive in and really try to understand what are the major bottlenecks preventing you from having an ideal experience on Windows. And so from this investigation, we've uncovered unoptimized processes that interact with your files, directories, and subprojects that are really slowing down something that should ideally take a lot less time. And so from this collaboration, we've set up test benches and performance analytics to go through and understand what's causing these unoptimizations in your processes. And from the cross-collaboration of multiple teams at Microsoft and Google developer tools, we've managed to reduce Android processes like Gradle build, emulator deployment, and SDK installation by up to 40%. And what's more, all of these performance updates are already live and on your machine today due to the seamless integration of our OS tooling to ship updates outside of BAM. And so, of course, this is just one of the many areas of performance that require attention. We here at Microsoft are going to actively pursue all the different things related to your performance needs that we would like to improve. And so with that, if you as a developer have any performance issues that you'd like us to look into, please feel free to head down to aka.ms/Windows-Dev-Performance and file an issue on something that you'd like us to investigate. And with that being said, I'll now pass it over to Craig to talk about some of our updates to Power Automate Desktop.
Thanks, DeAndre. So let's take a look at Power Automate Desktop. This is a really powerful tool that you can use to automate your workflows directly on your Windows machine. So I'm going to jump on over to my desktop, and you can see on the taskbar, I have Power Automate Desktop here, and I have some different workflows that I have available. And I'm going to click this one that I have open and I'm editing. And each row in this is a different action that this editor can take. And so I'm going to set a breakpoint here, and I'm going to run it just to see what it does. What I'm hoping to do with this is to generate a status mail automatically with one click, grabbing from data from some different sources. So my breakpoint hit correctly. I'm able to generate this status mail. Let's discard this test run, and let's go ahead and finalize this. I'm going to take out my breakpoints, and I'm going to stop it. And I'm going to go scroll all the way down to the bottom. And you can see that I have some different elements here of what I'm doing. I'm going to delete these last two, and I'll show what it looks like to re-add them in. The last thing that I do here is click the send button to actually send the mail. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to change it. So instead of clicking that send button, I'm going to click the sync button so that I can actually see the mail come into my inbox automatically. All I have to do is hover over it and control-click, and then from there I press done, and it is set up and good to go. And the last thing that I want to do is just to give the time for that mail to get into my inbox, I'm going to add a wait command so I can search on the actions pane, pull in a wait command, and then let's set that for 6 seconds. And now I should be ready to go to run this full demo. And all I need to do is go up here and hit run. The cool thing about this is it's going to start grabbing data from different sources. It opens up my mail app to start generating the mail, and then it's going to open up Microsoft Edge and actually grab live pictures from GitHub to get my number of pull requests and open issues. And then it navigates to my live website to actually grab the live view of a tip on my WSL Tips and Tricks website. Just for fun, we're going to open up Windows Terminal, and we're going to run fortune and cow say to get a live fortune in our status mail as well. And here's the last bit that we added, which is that sync command. So after 6 seconds, we press it, and the mail has successfully come in. And so I'm able to go in, scroll through it, and take a look at basically an end-to-end script of my entire status mail all through one button click. What's really exciting about Power Automate Desktop is that you can use it to automate your workflows entirely from end to end without having to worry about complex APIs, authentication issues, and running across different apps. So where it's really useful for me is I can go and grab from all these different sources simultaneously and really easily. We've just started this journey with developers, and we are looking to hear your feedback at aka.ms/PAD feedback. This Power Automate Desktop is live now in Windows Insider Preview builds. Next, I'm going to head on over to Kayla, and she's going to show GPU compute scenarios on Windows.
Thanks, Craig. So you might have noticed this huge machine that I have here, and it's been running a machine learning training model while Craig has been talking. I ran backstage and I started it up. So what is actually happening here is I'm doing some machine learning and I'm training it here on this device. So I know this is not quite as portable as the laptop I was using earlier, but it's definitely much more powerful. So the model that I'm training today is an object detection model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass a video to it, and then I'm going to receive a video back of it detecting objects in the video. And what's great about Windows Subsystem for Linux 2, which is what this is utilizing, is that it uses your GPU rather than your CPU to do all of this computation. So I truly am getting the most out of this machine while running this in the GPU rather than the CPU in WSL. So now that this is running, we're going to let this finish, and then I'll be able to show you what it looks like in another tab here in Windows Terminal once it's been exported and the training model has finished. So a tool that I'm going to be using today is Docker. So I will actually be creating a Docker container. And luckily, the Docker container, it has all the dependencies that I need, so we can get started right away. So it looks like the model has finished. I'm going to minimize the task manager, and then I'm going to head over into that second tab to get that Docker container set up. So I am able to use Docker here on WSL because WSL2 has full system call compatibility, so I'm able to run tools such as Docker. So to set up the container, I'm just going to use sudo docker run, and that will get the container that I've already created set up. And then I'm just going to pass in the just finished training model along with the video that I have to generate the detected object video afterwards. So the video that I'm actually going to pass in is a video from one of the Windows Subsystem for Linux developers, and he went skiing, and I figured skiing would be a good video to use because of the contrast between the white snow and then the people and skis in front would be a really good color contrast between the two. So I'm just passing the video in, and it looks like it's finished processing and detecting the objects, so let's see just how well it did. So I can go and open the File Explorer, and then this is the processed video, and we can see that it did a really good job identifying the objects here, and you can see that the people are identified as persons, and it looks like it worked well. So what I can do now is I can actually take this Docker container and commit it and push it up into Azure, so that I can access it from anywhere. But I'm not going to do that here because this is a conference after all, and everyone knows you can never trust conference Wi-Fi. So what's great about WSL2 and the GPU compute is that if you are already a machine learning developer, you can utilize the NVIDIA CUDA workflow just as you would on Linux, but here on Windows using WSL. And if you're a beginner or a student like myself, you can use the GPU compute power with TensorFlow DirectML, and you can run the same machine learning processes with any machine that has an Intel, AMD, or NVIDIA processor in it. So I can even do machine learning on my Surface Go here. But of course, WSL isn't only used for machine learning, and Craig has a ton of different examples of how WSL can have a seamless workflow between Windows and Linux. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Craig.
Thanks, Kayla. So yeah, WSL can be used in tons of different ways, and one that we're really excited to highlight is Blizzard Entertainment is using the Windows Subsystem for Linux to develop their latest game, Diablo 4. Let's take a look at what that looks like inside this video.
We at Blizzard develop our servers on Windows, but we actually build and deploy them on Linux. When we experience a crash in our environment, We like to grab the core dump and figure out what went wrong. We on the online team, we're pretty used to looking at crashes on Linux. The game programmers actually write game code that's deployed on Linux, but they're not as familiar with debugging on Linux. We had always wished we could use Visual Studio to look at our Linux crashes. I saw a couple of blog posts written by Erica. I reached out to her with just kind of a blind email, I think, and said, hey, I'm trying to do this thing, and can you help us? The actual goal was to be able to use Visual Studio, which is the tool set we're all familiar with and we love. The idea of doing that has always been unattainable. We started having a discussion about what problem we were trying to solve, and pretty quickly she involved some developers. We validated that eventually, yes, this is doable. A couple of months later, a preview version of Visual Studio came out that had this feature in it, and we tried it and it worked.
So what Visual Studio does is it enables C++ developers to remote debug Linux cores on WSL or a remote Linux system using the front end of the Visual Studio debugger. Visual Studio doesn't care how you compile your Linux binary, so you can be using a build system like make, CMake, a custom build script. The only pieces of information that you need to provide to Visual Studio is the Linux path to the core, the Linux path to the binary that produced that core file. Debugging Linux cores or crashes on Linux servers is not restricted to just a few Linux devs who are comfortable using GDB from the command line. It democratizes that whole process. We were able to develop a solution, validate the solution with Blizzard before we built it, and then make sure that it addresses the underlying problems and also the problems faced by the rest of the C++ cross-platform community.
When you parse this in Visual Studio, the tools available to you are so much better. We use the parallel stacks tool. It shows you your entire process space, like from a 30,000-foot view. And it lets us home in on the problem just so much faster. We were kind of dumbfounded at how responsive Microsoft was for us and how receptive you were to our requirements and to our problems. And that was just a fantastic experience.
We're really excited to have that opportunity to work with Blizzard Entertainment, and we're even more excited to announce that we are also adding support for GUI apps inside of the Windows subsystem for Linux. This project, codenamed WSLG, allows you to have full GUI app support on WSL. Let's jump over to my computer and we can take a look at what that looks like. So I have an image up here of a robot exploring a simulated cave, and it is using LiDAR to do this inside of Gazebo, which is a Linux app. And we can tell that because we actually see Linux-based tiling here for the close, minimize, and maximize of this. So we're drawing this Linux app at 62 frames per second on this computer, thanks to the GPU compute work that Kayla highlighted in her demos. On top of that, we also have RViz running over here to visualize what that robot is seeing. And the really cool parts is both of these apps are showing correctly in the taskbar with their icons, and you can see a little tux icon on the bottom right to denote that they are Linux apps. This is a really great example of what it looks like to do an end-to-end solution, but let's jump in and take a look at what it looks like to use this in your actual inner dev loop. So I'm going to open up Windows Terminal. I'm going to run bundle exec jekyll serve watch to run my website. And from here, you can see my website opens up correctly. I'm going to minimize this and go over to my other terminal pane, and I'm going to hit code dot. You might have seen this workflow before. This is a great way to interact with WSL. It gives you a full Linux IDE environment. And if I hover over these files, you can see that they are Linux file-ending files. What's great about WSLG is it allows you to interact with this basically Linux environment in the exact same way using any Linux editor that you like. So I'm going to go in and open up a specific file, minima.scss, using gedit. This is a Linux-based text editor. And I can go in, fully interact with this window, open up different ones, drag it around. You can even see there's drop shadow across these Linux windows, which is really beautiful. And let's do some editing. So I'm going to hit Shift Windows key and C, and that is going to open up my, from PowerToys, it's going to open up a color picker. And I'm going to click on this color, this nice purple in gedit. I'm going to copy it to my clipboard, and I'm going to select my text color here, and I'm going to hit Control-V and paste it directly in. From there, I save, my website regenerates, And when I reload my website, that purple shows up directly there. So it really has rich support between Windows and Linux to make your workflow as seamless as possible. To really drive this point home, let's open up Thunar, which is a Linux-based file explorer. And I'm going to right-click on that SASS folder, and I'm going to go to Open With, and you'll see an option saying Windows File Explorer. This is a really cool option that I added by creating basically a shortcut to the Windows process of Windows File Explorer. When I click on this, it opens up this exact same folder inside of my Windows File Explorer inside of Linux. And you can even see the Linux icon here. And so this is a great way to really blend the worlds between Linux and Windows. And just to close the loop, I'm going to look at a test script here to test my app before I actually go and upload it to production. I'm going to be using a tool called Playwright, and this will automatically test my app using a live browser instance. In this case, we're going to run Google Chrome from Linux directly as a Linux instance, test my app, test some different assumptions that I have of my changes didn't break anything. We see they passed, and we are good to go. So this is something that we're super excited to be delivering to you developers, and we're really interested to see what you can actually do with it. If you want to learn more, you can go to aka.ms/WSLG, and it is available now in Windows Insider Preview builds. I'm going to kick it on back over to DeAndre to close the session out.
All right. Thanks, Craig. So there you have it, everyone. With all these new updates and improvements, you're now better set up for increased productivity and success on Windows. We hope you feel empowered to take more control over your development experience and find an increased level of comfort in using Windows to develop software for all the things you care about. If you're just starting out as a developer or simply getting a new device set up for the first time, Windows Package Manager 1.0 provides you the functionality to import the programs and tools that are essential for your workflows. Once your new machine is set up, now that Windows Terminal is shipped into OS, you can take advantage of the new settings UI to access all the customization options to match your specific needs and style. Don't forget that you can also install Windows Terminal Preview to use the newest features like setting your default terminal emulator as well as Quake mode. If you have several things to work on, you can section off your projects with virtual desktops and use the latest functionality to make each environment distinct and unique. The performance updates to Windows allows you to have a much smoother development experience on your device. If you need increased power to run high compute tasks like AI and machine learning, hardware acceleration lets you speed up your work on Windows, regardless if you have a high-end machine or everyday laptop. Lastly, for those of you who prefer Unix environments, you can now have the best of both worlds on Windows with WSL and new WSLG integration to use your favorite Linux apps with built-in support for Linux-based GUIs and UI. All of these amazing features are available to you on Windows Insiders. We encourage you to get set up today and really take advantage of all the things you can do with Windows as your development platform. If you want to learn more about the things discussed in this talk, head on over to aka.ms/Windows for developers to check out the content and engage with our team on new features and requests that you'd like to see. And with that, and on behalf of my teammates, Kayla, Craig, and everybody else at Microsoft working to improve Windows developer experiences, we'd like to say thank you for spending time with us today. We hope you really enjoy the new content that's coming to Windows, and we look forward to seeing all the things that you'll create with it.
And that's a wrap, guys. Cut.
Man.
Great job.
That was good.
That was good.
Your demos were sick.
Yeah, that video. Yeah.
Yeah.